Welcome back. We're live at SUP-X, the Startup Expo with Whitney Sales. She's a general partner at Acceleprise. Whitney, welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone.
Excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing, selfishly, I'm really fascinated about. But maybe before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit better and maybe cover your background, kind of where you grew up, where you went to school, and maybe some career highlights.
Sure. So I'm one of the few people who can say I am a Cali native.
Rare.
I am born and raised in Sacramento, actually.
Nice.
State capital. Both my parents actually worked for government.
Okay.
But we're both innovators in their own ecosystems, which is pretty fun.
Sure.
And then I went down to school at UCSD down in San Diego.
What did you take?
Sociology, interestingly enough.
Okay, interesting. What made you want to take that?
Well, I'm going to filter my real reason, but I mean, in reality, it was something I enjoyed quite a bit. I had taken a class when I was in high school in sociology, and it was during 9/11.
Oh, wow.
And it was taught by a woman who was Afghani. And so she ended up breaking up the course into two groups and arguing what we had learned in class on what the policy that was being enacted during that period of time. It was an incredible class that
I can imagine.
I just learned a lot and drove my passion around it. But then it was just a very fun subject. I love social dynamics. So,
and I guess it
plays
very
out
much
very
plays
well.
into what you're doing now. Yeah, cool. So how did you get to Acceleprise?
So I didn't take a traditional VC route. For most people, I don't have a finance background. I am not a founder, actually. Well, I am in my own right. But I worked at early stage companies. My first job out of college, I was referred to a company called LoopNet through a friend.
Sure.
I actually can claim I've only interviewed for one job in my life, and I've never actually had to have a resume. Anyway, one of my friends had referred me to a job.
Okay, very cool.
And I met my manager, Brian, amazing human being, an incredible leader, Brian Smith.
Okay.
Who was leading sales at LoopNet, about in their pre-IPO. Under 100 people, I want to say closer to 50 than 100.
Sure.
Brian took me under his wing and mentored me for about 3 months into the job. I was selected to launch a new product for LoopNet.
Okay, cool.
Which really set me on this trajectory of launching new products, and we hit our annual target within 3 months.
Wow! Congrats. That's huge, actually. That's a big deal. Yeah, it's hard to do.
So it was really fun. I learned about diving into analytics. I learned a lot about marketing. I learned a lot about sales, setting together a sales strategy, training other people. Ended up launching another product for LoopNet, and then just kept finding new products and new teams to join. In primarily B2B SaaS. I did have a stint in consumer electronics at one point in time.
Okay,
but
interesting.
It was just new products are what I loved.
Okay.
And then my last job actually was a company called Demand Based. Really enjoyed it, but I had a random opportunity to pitch in front of Richard Branson with a bunch of entrepreneurs. And I had always thought of myself as an entrepreneur, but I actually didn't have a product to pitch at that time.
Okay.
So I came back, quit my job, and started kind of doing some customer interviews in the ecosystem.
Okay.
I ended up spinning that up into a B2B SaaS consultancy, doing what I loved, launching products, working with founders.
Very cool.
Doing it on a larger scale.
Sure.
And that's where I actually met my business partner, Mike. And so one of the companies that I mentored, a company, People Data Labs, I worked with them for a year, and Mike and I really got to know each other during that process, and found a good dynamic and fit.
Very cool.
And then when the first partnership came available, Mike brought me in. So long story, but
very cool.
Working early stage with founders has been my passion my entire career.
That's awesome.
And so it made a really great fit and venture at our stage.
Sure. So what do you guys do at Acceleprise?
So we're a B2B SaaS accelerator and seed fund.
Okay.
And we specifically focus on go-to-market with founders. So that's hence where my background and the consulting practice that I built out, the sales method kind of comes in. We've rolled that up under our programming, which is one of the areas I lead. So we invest in companies, and then we help accelerate them over a 4-month period of time.
Okay.
And that includes everything from marketing, demand generation, sales, to fundraising.
So how does that work? Like, you actually have a sales team that helps, or you hire a sales team, or how does that work?
No, so we're working directly with the founders and mentoring them around identifying what their ICP looks like, what are the channels they should be approaching, what's the positioning they should be doing. So as a founder, one of the things I find a lot of founders want to do is pass off sales very quickly.
Sure.
When
Okay.
as
That's
a,
why I asked,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
as a CEO, founder selling is actually one of you want to become one of your core competencies. You really need to know how to sell well.
Sure.
I
So you basically give them the tools.
Yeah.
Okay. You're
Yeah.
like behind the scenes, and then it's like, you guys go.
Yeah, I mentioned it this morning in the talk, is that the fundraising process itself is even a sales process. So it's hiring, so is convincing your team you need to pivot, all of these things. There's a sales process behind all of it. So if you have that core competency and really build it out, those are some of the strongest founders we see.
So you say you also give them some seed money. What does that mean to you? Because seed, depending on where you go in the country, it's kind of different. So what does that range of money look like for you guys?
So it's early capital. So we're usually first check in. So we invest in companies at a % of equity for cash. And it's typically a discounted equity because we're It's a traditional accelerator and accelerating the company. So we consider we're not necessarily falling under the seed or pre-seed round. We're usually more kind of an angel check, but it's but we also have a seed pre-seed fund.
And then how do you decide where a company fits, like a pre-seed or?
So companies are pre-seed and seed stage fund is broken up into it's about 50% companies we just see in general that don't necessarily fit to go into the accelerator, and then companies that have gone through the accelerator, the top percentile that have investors and we invest alongside great investors. We're not choosing to lead that round because there'd be some negative market signaling with that.
No,
so
fair enough.
So we follow.
So you say you give them like a 4-month, you help them kind of accelerate their business. Give us some other things that you help with in that 4 months.
So during that 4 months, so we do cohorts of 10 companies. So we don't do large programs by any means, and we actually customize the programming quite a bit to each company. So we have our speakers and mentors who come in, but we have office hours, and we really pick and choose who gets the office hours based off of their needs. And we're doing one-on-one coaching with every team around their go-to-market as well as their fundraising. So
that's huge, actually.
Yeah, we're in it with them. And then we actually stay with those companies through their Series A. So in the critical time of pre-early stage, pre-scale, basically, we're in it with them. And so there's that 4-month program of really getting them off the ground and getting them going. And then there's a just kind of ongoing advisory style relationship. We call it a family. And I think most of our founders would actually agree with that.
That's awesome.
It's a really close-knit group.
So why should people choose an accelerator? Because I think like it makes a lot of sense. But like for people that don't know about accelerators, like why should they pick one?
Yeah, so a lot of accelerators offer different things. So there's the traditional YCs out there who have 2,000 companies. They're basically getting dropped into 2,000 companies. So if you're selling to those companies, there's the added benefit of that. There are accelerators that help with technology. They're incubators, depending on how you want to name it. Who actually help you with technology and product. There's consumer-oriented accelerators. There's B2B SaaS-oriented accelerators like ourselves. And the reason a founder would join an accelerator is to help them get to market faster. So opening up a network of mentors and advisors, like I mentioned, opening up a network of fundraising or funders, so VCs, angels, institutionals, helping open up customers that they could potentially sell into, like I mentioned, around YC. So for us, one of the reasons that people choose us is it's product technical founders learning how to sell. So they don't have that experience. They realize that it's something they need to learn how to do. And so we'll help them with that as well as opening up the doors for fundraising. We have incredible fundraising stats.
No, that's awesome. So I'm curious, what types of things do you teach people on how to sell? Because it's really hard for kind of, especially technical people. So how do you kind of teach them, or what advice do you give people that are looking to learn that side of things? So
the Lean Startup's actually a great book for helping you build out your product, but there's this place where it kind of drops off, and it's the sales piece. So how do you transition your customer discovery process into a sales process, basically? And in the early days, if you've done customer discovery well, and started to flesh out what your product should look like, you should have identified as well what your ICP should look like, so your ideal customer profile should look like. And so in that process, what we're actually working with them on is really defining that in the early days. there's a great saying that it takes 10 customers to get to 100 because every
Yeah.
customer is an individual use case that can be repeated across another 10.
Sure.
So in the early days, if you can define what that group looks like very clearly,
Yeah.
you can actually drive growth a lot faster because the
Sure.
group of customers is usually watching one another. And so you can drive a
Right.
viral
It's
conversation.
less like selling, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you really have to penetrate a network of people. But if you have a really
Okay.
strong product market fit and you penetrate that network, you can hit them in all angles
and
on
they
all the ways
tell
they
their
learn.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Smart.
there's a way to do it effectively, and
Okay.
it's methodology I've developed over years, and it works very well. So
Sure.
we take them through that process.
No, very cool. So you guys have a bunch of different locations across
Yep.
North America.
Yep.
Why do you think it's important to be in different geographical locations? And obviously some are outside of the valley. So why
Yep.
do you think it's important to be outside of the valley?
Yeah, so we originally started in San Francisco
Right.
5 years ago. Our anniversary is actually coming up.
Nice,
from the
congrats,
first
that's
check we
awesome.
wrote. Yeah, it's
That's
really
awesome.
exciting. So we started at the Valley, or in San Francisco 5 years ago, and about 2 years ago we opened up an office in New York,
Okay.
and we're actually launching another office in Toronto. And we're
Right.
looking at additional ecosystems, but it takes a while to seed them before you can
sure.
launch it.
Sure.
Hence why we're here.
Yep. Fair enough.
So one of the things that we're looking at, the reason that we're actually looking at this is the concentration in Silicon Valley is starting to dilute quite a bit. And I think it's a
Sure.
great thing. As someone who's been in San Francisco now for
Sure.
14 years, I'm really happy about it. Sorry, investors, but that's my opinion.
Fair enough.
And so part of the reason you have to look at is the capital efficiency of businesses in San Francisco. It's a very high risk market
Sure.
to start your company. It's very information and education rich for startups. So I do
Sure.
actually recommend a stint in San
Interesting.
Francisco over a period of time to network, build your business, like get to know the business and some of the hacks that you can get in the Valley.
Okay.
It's definitely a kind of a place you should go
It's
and
like
visit.
A year, quarter.
I
Doesn't
mean,
matter.
even a couple months would get you
Okay,
there.
okay,
It's
okay.
just getting you plugged in and really understanding it. It's a different culture and a different
For
vibe.
sure. Yeah. It's weird when
but-
you're driving down the freeway and it's like a browser, like on the
Oh, yeah, it's
billboard. You're
all
like,
tech.
what? Firefox.
Yeah, it's all tech
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's funny.
You can kind of get slapped in the face with it.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing that's happening in the market is it's starting to get more and more distributed.
Sure.
So the reason we're building out offices in other locations is we need to be on the grounds where our founders are.
Right. Okay.
And the capital efficiency outside of San Francisco is just so much better. You basically get a discount on capital.
Sure.
And more VCs of the larger branding VCs, especially, and the institutionals are more comfortable with it.
Okay.
And
Sure.
so they're more willing to visit different locations. So we've seen growth in a number of ecosystems, and we're starting to see them mature a little bit more.
Sure.
And so it's one of the things we're actually watching quite a bit is where do we actually need to build our next location? Where's the next hub
Sure.
outside of the Valley where the next new startups are going to be coming? And so we're looking for areas where there's some larger mid-market companies, some large exits, some large funding rounds, a good network of mentors that can actually nurture these startups who have gone through it before. It's a really critical piece.
Sure.
And so those are just some of the things we're looking for, as well as being a good fit for B2B.
No, fair. Yeah, because it's interesting because there's so much cool stuff happening outside of the Valley
Oh my God, yes.
that I think a lot of people just don't realize it because it's not publicized as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Right. And so, or they have like an office in Silicon Valley. And it's like a mailing address or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Like they actually don't, and they like go because
Well, they go to fundraise there.
yeah. Fair.
It's where the VCs are,
Yeah.
but a lot of the VCs are more comfortable, going to visit for their board meeting or something like
Sure.
that.
Okay. Yeah.
But a lot of the companies they start the company there, they fundraise, and then they leave.
Yeah.
And there's such a discount and such a lower risk outside of the
Yeah.
Valley. And if your customers aren't in San Francisco, if you're not selling to other tech companies, like
Yeah.
if you're not SaaS for SaaS,
Yeah.
it probably makes sense for you to go be where your customers are anyway.
Sure.
It's a faster adoption cycle, a faster product cycle. It's just a lot better.
No, that makes
general.
sense. So what other mistakes or advice would you give founders or startups that you see kind of all the time happen that you're just like, you guys stop doing this thing or a few things?
Yeah. So quick tips. One, founders learn how to sell. If you're the CEO and business leader of the organization, you need to take on the core sales responsibility, or the core sales is one of your responsibilities, the revenue stream.
Sure.
And learn it and learn how to set someone up for success
Okay.
doing as little things as low as like sending LinkedIn requests and emails. Learn how to do it well before you bring on an SDR to do it, because if you don't take the time to learn that competency, when you go and work through doing it with VCs, or you go and work through trying to do it for BD or something like that,
right,
you're not going to have that skill set. You really need to take the time to learn it and develop it if you don't have it in place. So take the time and walk through all the nitty gritty of sales and really know it and understand it, because it's going to play out a lot in everything you do.
Sure.
2, make sure you're ready to fundraise and you understand why you're fundraising, not just because you want capital.
Okay, interesting.
So one of the things we see is a lot of founders come in. There's a lot of stories that are out there around this like miraculous round that came together in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of misinformation.
Sure.
Honestly.
But it took 6 months to come around in 2 weeks?
Or they did a lot of campaigning. It's a serial entrepreneur who's already had 3, 4 huge exits.
Sure.
So it's easy to fundraise. Of course the VCs want to back them. So as a first-time founder, you really need to take the time to understand how venture math works, and fundraising works, and really talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who have done it successfully, to learn best practices and make sure you're really ready for it before going out, because you really get about 3 to 6 months. Once you pass the 3-month mark, you're a little stale.
Yeah,
and the ecosystem, so you have a short period of time to do it. And once you say you're actively fundraising and just start taking a bunch of meetings, if you aren't strategic about that, it can really slow you down and burn the process and end up wasting a ton of time for you.
Sure. Interesting. So you mentioned like venture, like math and fun, like how you calculate all that stuff. Like, what advice do you give people, or is there like a good resource that they can get to talk
Secrets
about
of
that
Sand
stuff?
Hill Road is I just read
I actually
it
just
and
had Scott on the show.
Oh, great.
And I read his book. Fantastic.
Yes.
Book. Like, yeah. So yeah, he covers all that. I was curious to see what you'd say.
I just have been referring our founders to it, honestly. The other thing is for founders to actually understand venture math.
Sure.
To understand how LPs are assessing the VC.
Right.
I see a lot of founders who go out to raise too small of a round, and there's actually not enough allocation and equity for a VC, so it immediately rules them out. And coming back to that conversation, say, actually, I'm raising more than that, is a really hard thing to do. Because it just shows a little bit of ignorance, honestly, and that you didn't do your research.
So, is there like a specific? I know depending on what you're trying to build, obviously, like you probably want more money if it's more complicated and there's more years of research or whatever. But is there kind of like a minimum you should potentially look to raise, or is it really just depend on what you're trying to do?
So it's important to understand if you're raising an angel round or an institutional round.
Okay.
So an angel round, it may be a syndicate, it may be an angel fund, it may be some like friends and family angel round.
Sure.
So, and that's usually going to be, I mean, it's going to be under 750. I would say 500 is usually a good size for that. But I did have someone recently just say that it was like she raised 600 from a single angel, but most of the checks you see are in the 50 to 100K range. Okay, sure. You see some 200s, but it's not likely to get it all from one angel.
Yeah, fair.
And then for VCs, it depends on your valuation or your valuation you're looking to go for. The VC is going to put you at on how much you can raise. And so that's a little bit of the art of valuations, but certain VCs, if you're not raising over 2 million, they're not even going to look at you.
Fair enough.
It's just that's the size check they're writing.
Sure.
And so they may want to invest alongside another investor. Right. There's usually an active and a passive angel, or active and a passive investor. Right. A lot of the times in the seed stage these days.
Sure.
And so just understanding who likes to work together, how they like to work together, and what values they invest in. Which a lot of that information is public these days. You can find it on Crunchbase, SignalFire, a lot of different platforms.
Sure.
Best Dollar.
No, that's interesting. Is there any other advice you'd give people? We're kind of coming to the end, so maybe like if there's something else you see all the time, or other advice that you give founders, or
something to leave people with. Pay attention to your capital efficiency and know your numbers. If you understand the math of your own business, you're going to set yourself up much more to build a successful business as well as fundraise. So it's just understanding the math of your own business is critically important. And then knowing how you can tweak things and what has to go right in order for things to go right.
Yeah, fair enough.
And what could go wrong, and have contingencies around that, because it's going to put you in a much better place.
Sure, because you never know who you're talking to, right? And if you can't like instantly tell somebody what they ask, like the number, they're almost like turned off. And fair enough.
Yeah.
Like if you're just like, I have no idea.
If you don't know the number, you need to know why you don't have that number and how you're going to get to the answer. Which I've done. I've been in when I was running sales teams. I've been in those roles with where VP of sales got brought into the to the VC, and I several times I was like, I don't have that exact answer, but here's why I don't have that answer. Here's how I'm going to go about solving it. And here's how long it's going to take me.
Okay. Interesting.
So
how long it's going to take me is important.
Yeah. So that was something that worked very well.
No, very cool. So we're coming to the end. So where can people get more information about what you guys are doing?
Yes. So you can find us at acceleprise.vc. And then you can find me. My last name is actually Sales, born and raised. So it's Whitney Sales. You're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me at whitney@acceleprise.vc.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time of the day to be on the show. And
of course, thanks so much for the opportunity. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Okay, bye.